Greetings, Ukraine. Greetings, our resilient community. Olga Voronina here on the Razom UA channel with our weekly news digest covering events from the world, Ukraine, and our local community. The newsfeed is packed with events, and we choose only those that are worth thinking about for a while. Because you and I don't just watch the news, we live in it. World news. Last week, all the talk was about the peace negotiations in Geneva. It seems the negotiations are needed by the United States and Trump personally, who has already stopped some number of wars and now wants to stop another one. Does Moscow need negotiations? Obviously not, because it clearly doesn't want to stop the aggression against Ukraine and likely can't anymore. This is being said directly not only by leading world experts, but also by politicians. An exit from the war for Moscow is currently, as they say, technically impossible. Do European leaders need the Geneva negotiations? Generally, that is not the case. It is possible they want to show Trump that they also sincerely desire peace. But while Russia is bogged down in Ukraine, Europeans can quietly strengthen their defense capabilities and not wait for Russian troops to attack, for example, Estonia tomorrow. Does Ukraine need negotiations? Ukraine needs a just peace. These negotiations are actually not needed by anyone except Trump, so they are of no use to Ukraine either, especially since Ukraine knows Moscow will not stop voluntarily. There are no negotiations that would force Moscow to come to its senses. And so, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stated that he sees no chance for a quick end to the war through negotiations. This war will only end when one of the sides exhausts its military or economic resources, he said. Speaking about Russia, he noted, "When I look at this regime and this blind, fierce terror, I have very little hope." According to Friedrich Merz, the Russian leadership cannot do without war in the near future. They must maintain their military machine because they have no other alternative plan. In plain language, this means the following. It seems virtually impossible to persuade Russia to stop its aggression. And at the CDU convention in Stuttgart, Merz made other important generalizations. History teaches us one thing: appeasement does not bring peace, it only emboldens the aggressor. Those who adhere to naive pacifism today contribute to the wars of tomorrow. Thank you, Chancellor. Well, finally, at least some clear position. But the best news from the coalition of the concerned comes, as always, from Kaja Kallas, the EU's top diplomat. She's prepared a strategic document listing the concessions Russia must make during US-mediated negotiations with Ukraine. The idea is clear. Why should Ukraine be the one making concessions in these talks? A fair settlement means that the party responsible for everything is the one who must yield. From the perspective of the European Union in Brussels, Russia must significantly decrease its troop numbers, withdraw its forces from Ukraine, as well as from Moldova, Georgia, and Armenia, pay full financial reparations, return all abducted and illegally detained people, and hand over all war criminals. These points are the European Union's response to Moscow's ultimatums regarding the surrender of Ukraine. It is telling that the United States has said nothing of the sort, while Brussels insists that negotiations in the US-Russia-Ukraine format make no sense unless the European Union is involved. On February 23rd, a meeting of EU foreign ministers will take place in Brussels. During this session, they will be discussing in detail the concessions that Russia is required to make. Is Europe finally waking up? We'll see. News from Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military continues to target the aggressor's oil sector with the most effective sanctions possible. In the Pskov region, 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, there is a city with a beautiful Ukrainian name, Veliki Luki. There is, or rather, was a large oil depot located there.
Пробил, нефтебаза горит.
Где хороший?
Что-то конкретно полыхает.
Смотри, летит, смотри. Бах! Слышишь, прилетел. Охуеть. Смотри, прилетел.
Четвертый.
This year's holiday calendar has somehow strangely synchronized the celebrations of various religions and spiritual schools. February 18th marks Ash Wednesday and the solemn start of Lent in the Roman Catholic Church and many Protestant denominations. On this same day, February 18th, the most joyful time of the year for the Jewish people began, the sacred month of Adar. Additionally, on February 18th, the holy month of Ramadan officially began for Muslims around the world. February 17th, according to the Chinese Taoist calendar, is the New Year. The year of the fire horse has arrived. On the 17th, devout Buddhists celebrate the birthday of Maitreya, the future Buddha. The Hindus were actually just a little bit ahead. On February 16th, one of the most important Hindu holidays took place, the Great Night of Lord Shiva. And for the Orthodox, February 19th is White Thursday, the start of the most active festivities for Masnitsia or Kolodi. Perhaps such a coincidence is a good sign? Maybe positive changes for the better await us. If that happens, remember that you heard about the good sign right here on our channel, and write to us about it. The Muslim community of Kyiv has celebrated the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan.
We greet the entire Muslim community of Ukraine and all Muslims of the world on the holy month. This is, of course, a difficult month, a month of trials, but it is also a month of hope. So we wish all Muslims of Ukraine and the world that this month truly becomes a month of hope, tranquility, peace, and our victory.
However, the approach of Ramadan in Ukraine was overshadowed by a disgusting provocation by, who do you think? The entire TSN. This whole situation first began when the security service of Ukraine in Kamyansk arrested a specific pro-Russian activist named Sementsov, who had been publicly calling for the bombing of Ukraine.
Russians, we need to hit the SBU buildings, the Ministry of Internal Affairs buildings, the police, and so on.
Sementsov's going away for a long time, and that's good. We're currently verifying the information. But TSN journalists somehow took it upon themselves to delve much deeper into the matter and conducted a classic journalistic pseudo-investigation. They collectively and quite aggressively accused many Muslims without any real grounds.
We've conducted an extensive investigation into the ties of some specific religious figures and found evidence that they may indeed be linked to the Muslim Brotherhood and to Russia. Currently, I want to strongly emphasize they may be linked. We're not making claims, but providing facts for your and the relevant authorities' review.
How is this done? Speculation, baseless insinuations, and scaring the audience with talk of Islamic extremism and a Russian trail. They've gone so far as to accuse prominent public figures known for their support of the Revolution of Dignity, their love for Ukraine, fighting against Russian aggression, and even serving within the ranks of the armed forces. Everyone's been labeled as pro-Russian Islamic terrorists.
Ismailov is a well-known public and religious figure. He received his religious education at the Moscow Higher Spiritual Islamic College. Despite the fact that he supported pro-Ukrainian protests during the revolution in 2013, later, in 2019, the Russian YouTube channel Alif TV published a greeting from the Ukrainian Mufti Said Ismagilov to his Russian audience.
We will conduct our own investigation and prepare a separate program on this topic. Our colleagues from TSN should be ashamed. On YouTube, there's already a whole storm of outraged comments addressed to these investigators. Ladies and gentlemen, you simply cannot do that. You must not undermine the interreligious peace in Ukraine during this ongoing war. Stay tuned for announcements on our channel. So, who is to blame for the mass poisoning of the deputies of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine? Initial suspicions that it was an acute intestinal infection, often spread through the fecal-oral route, could not be confirmed. Instead, research by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention pointed to a different culprit. Norovirus is a highly contagious and acute infectious disease that often spreads in closed and crowded spaces. It is primarily transmitted through direct physical contact and by contaminated airborne droplets. So it actually wasn't a simple case of food poisoning, but much like in those movies about global epidemics, there was a specific patient zero from whom the infection first spread. However, this patient zero has not yet been located, so just in case, please don't touch the deputies and definitely don't shake their hands. Take care of yourselves. On February 20th, Ukraine honors the memory of the Heavenly 100 heroes. The tragic events of February 19th to 21st in the year 2014 on the Maidan became a definitive turning point in Ukraine's modern history and effectively marked the beginning of Russia's open war against the nation of Ukraine. We remember the bloody epiphany, or baptism of fire, the storming of the Maidan, the shooting of protesters by Berkut and Moscow snipers, and the heroic defense of the Maidan. The Heavenly 100, 107 participants of the Revolution of Dignity and Maidan activists who perished. We will always remember these deeply tragic and solemn events, bringing fresh flowers and carefully reading each of their names over and over. The Maidan is our historical choice. We chose freedom and a bright European future. Even then, on the Maidan, a great many of the participants of the Revolution of Dignity realized that the leadership in Moscow would never be able to forgive us for making this choice. And that is exactly what happened. The struggle for our choice continues. Kyiv region news. In the Kyiv region, cases of acute respiratory viral infections are on the rise. The Kyiv Regional Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the same one that investigated the diarrhea outbreak among deputies, reported grim data. In 1 week, 18,335 people in the Kyiv region fell ill with ARVI and the flu. The incidence rate has exceeded the epidemic threshold by 17.4%. The highest recorded rates of acute respiratory viral infections are found in the Boryspil, Bucha, Vyshhorod, and Fastiv districts. The highest number of ARVI cases was recorded among children in the 5 to 14 age group. That is, 55% of all cases, by the way, were found in this particular group. 827 residents of the region have contracted COVID-19. We're seeing a fairly moderate and steady level of epidemic activity. This year, in addition to the freezing winter cold, we're currently grappling with a significant heating and power supply crisis. Just a reminder, respiratory infections and the flu thrive on hypothermia and, of course, stress. Avoid staying out in the cold for too long and dress warmly. A veteran center for our servicemen, servicewomen, and their families has opened in the Bucha community. Here one can receive psychological and legal assistance, consultations regarding employment or starting one's own business, and all necessary administrative services. This is a very important support system that will help veterans reintegrate into civilian life. They worked hard on creating this dedicated space for over half a year. Now it is finally open to everyone, for everyone who needs support and a welcoming community. The Veteran Space address is located at 104B Kyiv Mirodska Street in the city of Bucha. On February 20th, at the central cemetery of Sviatopetrivska village in the Bilohorodka community, a farewell ceremony was held for the dedicated defender of Ukraine, Anton Ostapenko, a former employee of Sviatopetrivska. He previously lived in the city of Izium. At the very start of the full-scale invasion, back in March 2022, his family suffered a terrible tragedy. As a result of enemy shelling, Anton's sister, Yulia, was tragically killed. An enemy shell hit a 5-story building. Back in 2023, the entire family moved to the village of Svetopetrivska. In October of 2025, Anton took up arms to defend his country. He was drafted into the 82nd Separate Air Assault Bukovina Brigade. There, he served with distinction as a master of the Strike Unmanned Aerial Systems Unit, working specifically as a UAV operator. Tragically, he died on February 7, 2026, while he was performing a critical combat mission. Anton Ostapenko will forever be 40 years old. Eternal and bright be his memory. On February 22, 2026, a meaningful and supportive retreat for war veterans and their families was held in Bilohorodka. The word retreat has actually been quite widely used here over the last 10 years. It refers to mental, emotional, and spiritual recovery. How to provide psycho-emotional support, promote social adaptation, and restore strength. By organizing joint rehabilitation and physical fitness and wellness activities. For instance, a workshop and a winter fishing tournament, as well as a group lunch. And we also do this through various games and activities relatively new to our region that perfectly serve the retreat's primary goals. Cornhole, disc golf or frisbee golf, petanque, and classic buckyball. Do you want us to tell you more about these games and activities? Please feel free to write about it in the comments section of this video on YouTube. And we will be very happy to share this positive experience. All this is for the benefit of recovery, informal communication, and strengthening veteran and all other Ukrainian communities. By the way, in the village of Bobrytsia, on February 21st, folk Masnitsia festivities took place. Holidays are never too many, especially in winter, when you want to warm up not only at home by the fireplace, but also in the fresh air, among laughter, songs, and living human warmth. Farewell to winter has already become a symbolic ritual here. And, of course, the burning of the effigy, the personification of winter, became at the same time a sincere invitation for spring to the community.
Today in our Bobrytsia, the holiday of Masnitsia is taking place. Everyone's in a great mood because it's been a very long time since we've had such celebrations here. Regardless of the events we are also commemorating today, such as the Revolution of Dignity, the anniversary of the Revolution of Dignity that happened before, and also on the 24th, we will mark the anniversary of the start of the full-scale invasion, a day of prayer. But today we are celebrating a folk holiday, Kolodi Day or Masnitsia.
And now for the weather. This week, the frost is finally starting to disappear, and it's getting noticeably warmer. And it's no wonder, since on February 21st, they burned the Kostruba in Bobrytsia. All week it will be around 0 at night and slightly above freezing during the day. There will be occasional rain and snow. The sun will hide behind the clouds, but it's rising higher and higher and warming us up more. Spring is already on its way. Ukraine fights on and will not surrender. In these difficult times, let's support each other and stand our ground. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and leave your comments below. Together we are strong. Together we are a nation. This has been Olga Voronina. See you soon in the next news update right here on the Razom UA channel.